Have you heard of this lab before, homocysteine? Your physician very rarely checks this one, and that's a big problem for hair loss, for health. But right here, atherosclerosis, heart disease, stroke. Over here, epilepsy, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, ALS, brain issues, eyesight, hearing, gonad, sex hormone production, endocrine, diabetes, skeletal system, muscles, and renal issues, homocysteine. And it's very easy to check for. Now, the problem with physicians, MDs in America, or you got your GPs here in Australia, they won't even check it. When they do check it, they'll say around about 14, you're good, and they send you on your way. Did you know that if you're 10 and above, that's a twofold increased risk of everything you see on screen there? And to make matters worse, when homocysteine is high, it causes lesions in your arteries and plaque to build up. And they'll blame cholesterol. Now, I'm going to talk about what's actually increasing your cholesterol and also causing oxidized cholesterol, the small, dense stuff. Now, that's what's causing heart disease. So, as I've learned when I went through and did my certificate in nutrition, functional doctors, they say, you go to the standard healthcare system and your blood labs are okay. They're in standard what range, which is absurd. And you feel like shit. You got no energy. You're packing on the fat. You don't sleep properly. You got gut issues. You got joint pain, skin issues, brain fog. You can't detox properly, and they send you on your way. And they say, this is normal. Never back that idea. I'm 53, and you can get to a ripe old age as long as you've got the framework for these optimal blood labs and the critical ones to grab. So homocysteine is a big issue, and it's a marker of what's called methylation. So let's just quickly unpack what methylation means. So, in a nutshell, when they sequenced the human genome, they were very surprised to find there was only about 25,000 genes in the human genome. And they also discovered something that was called methylation. They've known about methylation for decades and decades. But you see these mice on screen here, same genes, same genes, right? And one is overweight. I'll go back here. This poor little dude there, and this one isn't. And one is methylating, the other one isn't. So you can see how that's a problem. So basically, methylation does a lot of critical jobs in your body, but one of its main functions is it switches genes on and switches genes off. Now think about it like this. Let's just say for a moment you're listening to a pianist and he sounds beautiful. Everything's in tune. It just sounds amazing. Now, when you're not methylating properly, you can't switch genes off and on. So it sounds like a beginner. It just sounds terrible. And that's what's happening to your body. You've got inflammation. You can't switch genes on and off. Now, if you can't switch your tumor suppressor cells off, you know, cancer. So when you've got low magnesium and homocysteine, DNA damage because you're not methylating properly. So you need magnesium to methylate. You need all the vitamins and minerals to methylate. So as you can see there, pretty big problem. So when you're not methylating, DNA damaged, reduction in collagen production. So your joints feel like shit. Your skin is aging fast. You've got increased oxidative stress. You got your hormones just all over the shop, mostly low testosterone for dudes. And you got epigenetic changes, which is really bad. And clearly, cardiovascular and brain health goes to shit. Now, of course, you can do advanced testing for methylation. And this is a report that you can do. And you don't really need to do this. We just need to do blood labs first. So you can see here, it's out here. This is a methylation panel, blood panel. It's out here, 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 here. It's just out all over the place. So that person isn't methylating correctly. Now, once we understand that data, we go back to the methylation genes and we can say, okay, it's out here, it's out here, it's out here, and we know exactly how to get you back to optimal. And glutathione, so when homocysteine goes up, you got low glutathione, right? So homocysteine comes down here, goes into glutathione, and you recycle glutathione. Now, the problem is when you're not methylating, you will have low glutathione. All right. And you can check this on a blood lab. So look at this shit here: neuro and brain, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Hunting, ALS, migraines, MS, autism, ADHD, ADD, bipolar depression. Now, that's a lot. And a lot of people are suffering because they're not methylating, because they're not getting their labs checked, the critical ones, and getting them in optimal range. Cardiovascular, erectile dysfunction, stroke, high blood pressure. And then, of course, diabetes and hyper and hypothyroidism. And look at all of this here: asthma, infections, lupus, cancer, Lyme, allergies, gingivitis, arthritis. And over here, you're fatigued. You've got chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, your fertility, cystic fibrosis, ulcers, acid reflux, skin issues. So, pretty big problem when you're not methylating correctly. So, in a nutshell, more DNA damage and more cancer shows up in your life if you're not methylating. And plus, like this poor mouse here, you pack on the fat and you're told that this is normal. Do you think this is normal? So we've got to have data. We've got to have a framework, and I'll provide a strategy for that for you. Now, another big problem that we see quite frequently is a lot of people have poor blood sugar regulation. Now, when my good friend Dr. J went through and did his PhD for 5 years on sex hormones and cholesterol, he said one of the biggest causes of heart disease is high blood sugar. So I'll play this video, and this is Dr. J speaking about the issues when you don't have optimal blood sugar. Listen to this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you start getting, it says in the pink there, once you start getting above 85, not 100, like the normal range says on the blood test, 85, significantly higher mortality rate, cardiovascular disease, for example. Pretty much everything health goes down once you get above 80, if you're chronically above 85.
Yeah. And one of the main...
That doesn't matter what the age was. That doesn't matter what the age is. I've looked at different age studies. You could be 5 years old. If you're above 85, your blood sugar is too high. If you're 80 years old, your blood sugar is above 85. It's too high. It doesn't matter what your age is.
And I think, yes, one of the main mechanisms of actions is the AGEs. They glycate all the cells, every single cell. Yeah.
But, exactly. That's basically like the oxidized LDL version of sugar.
Right. So the
cholesterol, if cholesterol stays in your body a long time, it becomes oxidized. It's called oxidized LDL, right, on the blood test. If sugar stays in your body a long time, it's called advanced glycation end products, right? AGE. Glycation, it's basically glucose, right? It's sugar.
Glucose. Yeah.
And it sticks to your proteins like hemoglobin A1C, and it sticks to all kinds of stuff all over your body. It makes your cells all screwed up, and the proteins sticking out of your cells get all screwed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard to measure. So the nice thing about oxidized LDL, it's easy to measure in a blood test. The problem with age, it's hard to measure because it's all stuck to everything inside your body. It's not just sitting around in your blood. Right? Yeah, keep that blood sugar below 85, you'll be fine.
Yeah. So that's what we need to do, because glucose, as they do in cholesterol tests, as you can see right here, they use glucose to induce oxidative stress. So that's when glucose is above that 85, or for us Aussies or people in the UK there,
4.7.
It's 4.7. Yeah. So that's what we have to really understand, is just to keep that blood sugar below that thick level. And the mainstream doctors say that 100 is okay. I mean, it's really not, is it?
No, it's insane. It's completely insane. What they do in the medical system with sugar is they wait until you get full-blown diabetes before they like to complain about it, because that's when they can start selling drugs. It always goes back to the drug sales and how they're trying to manipulate things for that. But you don't want to wait until you get diabetes to pay attention to your blood sugar. You want to be optimized, right?
So as you can see there, blood sugar is a big problem. So when you go to your doctor in Australia here, they'll say 5.4, send you on your way. And you've got this. You've got a massive increased risk of dying from heart disease. And that's because glucose, when it's too high, too long, causes oxidative stress and the formation of advanced glycation end products, which I'll dive into in a bit. So this is a pretty significant study. I mean, 22 years. Think about it. Healthy, non-diabetic men, 2,000 of them, they tracked them for 22 years. And they found that when you're above 85, well, that's 4.7 for Aussies, significantly higher mortality rate from cardiovascular disease. Now, I've worked with hundreds of people, and a lot of times it's really difficult to get them down to 4.7. And the biggest cause for that is poor gut health. When you got poor gut health, you've got insulin resistance, inflammation, and that pushes up your sugar, your blood sugar. And as hard as you try to get it down, it's tough. So the foundation for human health is gut health without question. Now, another thing you see here, EPA. What is EPA? Eicosapentaenoic acid, right? It's an omega-3 essential fatty acid. So when you get enough omega-3, it results in a dose-dependent reduction in lipid oxidation and cholesterol domain formation. And this is on cholesterol tests, right? So there's a plethora of research on this now. Now, it's not that omega-6 is bad and omega-3 is really good. We need both, but we need balance. We need balance. And you can get balance in about 12 weeks. So I've got information below, and I'll talk about that, how you can get this tested. But you got to get in the greens because we've tested over 250 people now, and this is where they are, over 90%. That's where they are. And look at this. As today in Western diets, it promotes the pathogenesis of many diseases, including cardiovascular, cancer, inflammatory, and autoimmune disease. And you feel like shit. And your blood sugar's here all the time. And when you get this here, the inflammation goes down, your gut health gets a bit better. And this is just one thing that we need to do. We've got to get our gut health back. We've got to get our immune health back. We've got to get our vitamin D at optimal levels, retinol at optimal levels, all the vitamins and minerals. So if you take your health seriously, you're in the right place. I'm going to show you how to put it all together. Now, when you get your omega-3 in this bracket too, it helps with protein synthesis and fat loss. Again, there's a plethora, a ton of information coming out on this, and it only takes 12 weeks to get here. And I'll talk about how we can achieve that as we progress. So it's like, I guess, a magic trick to lowering inflammation and getting back to health, but there's many more things we need to do to be fully optimal. So that is blood sugar. And just the final thing on blood sugar here. So there's many studies that have been done like this. So please pay careful attention here. This one was adapted from O'Keefe et al. 2008. And I learned all about this study in The Blood Sugar Fix by Dr. James DiNicolantonio. So that's a great book to pick up if you want to get your blood sugar under control there. So in that study from O'Keefe et al. Right here, this is a 2-hour postprandial glucose test. So what they found is if your blood sugar comes back to 87 and below, and for us Aussies, that's 4.7 and below, right? You've got coronary regression in the plaque in your arteries. So that's good. Now, when it goes above that, remember, you 87 to like 106, look at this. You're filling up the plaque in your arteries. And the higher it becomes, the worse it is. So it's accelerated atherosclerosis. And again, as I mentioned, glucose-induced oxidative stress. You're inflamed. Your energy comes down. Your sex hormone production comes down. Your thyroid production comes down. And you have dysregulation in your immune system. And as they've shown now, when you acutely raise blood sugar for a couple of hours there, inflammation like interleukin-6, TNF-alpha, they all go up. And this is also driving alopecia hair loss. So we've got to really keep that under control. And the final nail in the coffin to motivate you to fix this once and for all is when your blood sugar is too high too often, it causes AGEs, advanced glycation end products. Now, here's the deal. When scientists say something is causative, that's serious. It's causative factor in many degenerative diseases, AGEs. They've been linked to Alzheimer's, heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, wrinkles, and loss of skin elasticity, infertility, and more. So do you want to age fast or do you want to age like fine wine? But it's not just your skin, it's all of your cells. I mean, it's so important to get this right. Does that mean you got to go on a ketogenic low carb diet? No. You can still have your carbs, and I actually recommend it. But you can also test genetically how you respond to blood sugar. Now, I'm blessed. This is my blood sugar regulation genetically there. So I don't have too many issues with blood sugar. I can eat a boatload of carbs. I've only got one little issue, and that's a sunshine issue. So I've got to get vitamin. I got to get a dose of vitamin sun to the skin. You got keratinocytes that help optimize blood sugar. And then this poor person here that we tested, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blood sugar issues. This person can still have carbohydrates, but you got to have a healthy gut. You got to have a healthy immune system. You got to know what foods that are causing inflammation, and you got to dial all this in, but it's absolutely doable. Now let's segue into, I believe, the most important and powerful hormone in your body, thyroid. So let's talk about that and unpack it. So your thyroid gland, legends, when it makes thyroid hormone, 93% comes out as crude oil, T4. We can't do a lot with it. And only 7% comes out as the active jet fuel, right? So we've got to enzymatically convert it through these enzymes from T4 into T3, the active form. So those enzymes require vitamins and minerals like selenium here, but we also need things like zinc and copper. There's a whole host of things that we need. Now, we've got to convert it, and there's specific organs that convert it. So the liver, you need a healthy liver, 30 to 40%, healthy gut, 20%. So right there, around about 50 to 60% right there. So if you've got a sick gut, and a lot of people have a sick gut, you're going to have very low conversion. And what we see when people have a sick gut, their reverse T3 is always up. And reverse T3 binds to the active receptors. So the active form of T3 can't do anything. So you could have normal thyroid labs, and if you don't check your reverse T3 and it's up here, you're still going to be absolutely fatigued. Now, this is why I mentioned earlier that gut health is the foundation. Your amazing gut is foundational. It's got a brain called the enteric nervous system, and it sends messages to the brain. Stress. Do you want to have stress? Do you want to have anxiety and depression? IBS, schizophrenia, cognitive decline, brain fog, memory issues, and even autism. So sick gut, big problem. And then endocrine, right? Your hormones, they're disrupted. And what's replaced with healthy sex hormones and thyroid and growth hormone? Stress hormones to attenuate that inflammation and oxidative stress, of course. And then heart disease, cardiovascular disease and stroke, thrombotic events, thick, sludgy blood, hypertension, high blood pressure. And lungs, there's so many people that are suffering from wheezing, coughing, seasonal allergies, rhinitis, and asthma. And the liver, so you can see how the gut plays in liver. And we just go back here quickly, right? You could have normal thyroid labs, but your reverse T3 is up here. So you're not going to be optimal with your metabolism. So that's exactly why we need a healthy gut. Now, the liver gets rid of toxins and chemicals and keeps estrogen at healthy levels, which boosts men's sex hormone production. Now, the pancreas, 3 important jobs: insulin sensitivity, right there, blood sugar regulation, and releases digestive enzymes. So you fully digest your foods and assimilate and build muscle. And it also sends satiety signals like hormones like CCK up the vagus nerve into the brain. It says, dude, you can stop eating now. Stop eating. Right. And then, of course, osteoporosis. And the worst thing that happens is the gut muscle access. So as we age, like 40, 50, 60, sarcopenia. I see so many people these days, they've got sarcopenia and they're hunched over a little bit and they're a bit stiff and sore, and then they get the walkers and they get on those little buggies and drive around the buggies because they're very frail. Who wants that? And the skin, so alopecia, hair loss, acne, cirrhosis, atopic dermatitis, wrinkles, and advanced skin aging. And then the triple whammy, number 3, your reproductive access, your gonads, testes in men, ovaries in ladies, fertility and testosterone go, kidney, bladder, and you've also got a gut thyroid access. the gut thyroid axis there. So if you've got a sick gut, you're going to be suboptimal energy. Your blood sugar will be up. You'll have inflammation. You'll be moving towards some serious illness down the road. So thyroid is really important for a lot of different things, but you think about it, metabolism, it's just like the powerhouse of your cell. But here's the thing, with thyroid hormones, there's a butter zone, right? Too high is bad, anxiety, you can't sleep, and too low, fatigued, feel like garbage. You can actually flip flop between the two. But once you optimize yourself, it stays here as nature intended in the butter zone there. So we got to do comprehensive lab testing. Now, another thing that really grinds my gears is that when you've got issues with your thyroid, you've got insulin resistance, but you've also got testicular abnormalities for men. And to make matters worse, with insulin resistance here, what's going to happen with insulin resistance? You've got a lot of oxidative stress in the brain. So you got lipid issues, mitochondrial dysfunction, inflammation, apoptosis, cell death. So you've got Alzheimer's and all those brain-related diseases, MS, memory issues, cognitive impairment, and degradation. So quite literally, the brain is rotting away. So unfortunately for a lot of people, this is what they're left with. They're supposed to be in their prime. They're supposed to have their memories. But here we are, a typical 82-year-old brain. This is typical on a PET scan now. This is typical. Who wants that? That's what I want. So we've got to correct all of these issues. Now let's talk about cholesterol and thyroid and the thyroid connection. And they've known about this since the 1920s. So when you've got really shit thyroid production, dyslipidemia. So what does that mean? Too much cholesterol, and it gets oxidized. And your good cholesterol goes down. Your trigs also go up. That's pretty bad. And then you've got carotid artery thickening. So right here, you can actually see it, carotid artery thickening with hypothyroidism, low-grade inflammation, impaired endothelial function, so erectile dysfunction, or testosterone and blood flow. Then over here, you've got increased salt sensitivity, decreased renin, and increased arterial stiffness, which leads to heart failure. It remodels the heart, cardiomyopathy. So many people are on these drugs to keep their heart going. So as you can see, not ideal at all. But we've also got to think about the arteries as they need building materials. So collagen, arteries, organs, intestines, so gut health, heart health, brain health, joints, skin health, all of it. Like 70% of your skin is collagen. So if you're lacking this, well, of course you're going to age quickly. All right. So medical system's got a lot to answer for. Now, here's the problem with the current medical system when it comes to thyroid testing. So you go to your doctor and go, man, like I just don't have a lot of energy. What's wrong with me? Well, let's do a thyroid panel. Right? So they check TSH, and if you're lucky, maybe T4. And here's problem number one. With thyroid stimulating hormone, we need to be in the butter zone here, all right? And that's 1.8 to 3. That's the butter zone. Now, they'll say if you're 5.5 or 0.5, you're good, send you on your way. Now, what happens if you're here and here, you're flipping and flopping and flipping and flopping? Well, you've got issues. I mean, they're going to send you on your way. They're not going to do any more detective work. Now, let's just say if it is in the butter zone here, but they don't check your TPO, okay? Now, why is that a problem? Well, if you've got TPO antibodies, that's destroying your thyroid tissue. 7 to 10 years later, you'll have complete destruction of your thyroid and you'll be on medication for life, and you don't want to go down that route. Now, what about reverse T3? So if all of these are in the functional optimal range, but your reverse T3 is too high, and there's a lot of reasons why that would happen, it binds to the thyroid receptor, so active T3 can't do its work. And they've also shown if these are an optimal range, but you've got the TPO antibodies elevated, like lots of studies have shown this now, it negatively affects the quality of your life, leading to anxiety and depression. So conventional medicine claims to follow evidence-based medicine, but the evidence clearly supports the need for a full thyroid panel. So what does that look like? So this is the basic thyroid labs that we recommend right there. And this is the comprehensive one. So all of these the antibodies, a 4-point cortisol check to make sure your reverse T3 isn't too high, SHBG, all of these inflammatory markers, all of these vitamins, and also iron labs. Now, I just want to pause here for a moment with iron labs. Now, when you get your iron checked, they'll say anywhere from 300 to 400 for ferritin, which is a representation of the store of iron in your body. If it's between 30 and 400, you're good. Now, that's not ideal. What functional range says we need to be is between 50 and 100. Now, some functional clinicians will say up to 150, you're okay. Now, that might be true, but if you've got this superoxide dismutase gene SNP, that's a big problem. This is Dr. J speaking about how serious this is. And incidentally, we've checked over 250 people, and quite a few have this gene, quite a few. Now, listen to this, Dr. J.
Heart disease. Yeah. So this one gene, there's really the two genes here, but the SOD2 gene is not a risk unless her ferritin is high. But if her ferritin is high, this gene gives her a 10-fold higher risk of heart disease, which is super high risk.
10-fold, yeah.
We want that to be 0-fold. So you got to make sure the ferritin is between 50 and 100, not just 50 to 500 or some kind of crazy nonsense.
Yeah.
Has to be optimal, not just normal in this one.
Yep.
This is going to be.
So we take this extraordinarily seriously. We want to get you optimal. All of these labs need to be dialed in. And when they're dialed in, your body starts to operate optimally. The sex hormones go up, the thyroid goes up, your energy production's better, your sleep's better. You want to get out the door, you want to exercise, you want to become the strong person that you were born to be. You want to attack life. So one final thing on iron is iron overload. Now, we've seen this with a lot of our clients. Over 90% have too much ferritin stores, and this is what can show up. So iron overload is quite serious. Listen to this carefully.
When you have so much iron in circulation, the plasma iron binding protein, the transport called transferrin, becomes saturated. And when this happens, iron begins binding to other things such as albumin, citrate, acetate. And this iron is referred to non-transferrin bound iron. And when this happens, cells will take up this non-transferrin bound iron into the liver, for example, the heart, the pituitary glands, the joints, the pancreas, as well as the gonads. And here they undergo biochemical reactions, which creates reactive oxygen species, which in turn causes tissue damage, inflammation, and fibrosis. So for example, in the liver, it can cause cirrhosis. As well, it increases the risk of hepatocellular carcinoma. In the heart, it can cause restrictive or dilated cardiomyopathy as well as arrhythmia. In the joints, it causes arthritis. In the pituitary glands, when you have iron depositing here, it can cause secondary hypothyroidism or secondary hypogonadism. In the pancreas, the deposition of iron can cause diabetes mellitus. In the gonads, it can cause testicular atrophy, amongst many other things.
So can you see how that's a problem? It's affecting the pituitary. The pituitary is going to be sending out signals for testosterone, growth hormone, all the hormones. And it's going to start filling up there and cause oxidative stress and inflammation. And of course, the arthritis, the heart, the liver, the pancreas. And I've spoken about how integral the pancreas is for digestion, insulin sensitivity, as he said there, diabetes, and also releasing satiety hormones. And let's not forget the old ball sack, the gonads, testicular atrophy. And you know what that plays into is hair loss. So right here, so I'll come back to this screen for hair loss in a moment. Well, I'll start here. So the inflammation there, right? Massive inflammation, even with just iron overload, especially if you got that superoxide dismutase 2 gene SNP. And a lot of the people we've tested have. Then if your thyroid's off, now you might have too much dihydrate testosterone, and you can fix that issue too. And mental stress, like if you're always stressed out, you're always feeling like shit, we've got to attenuate that. We've got to have a strong mindset. We've got to have more mental resilience. Poor nutrition. So if you're lacking vitamins and minerals and you're not methylating, And you can check for all of this. And some medications can cause that. Like the corticosteroids, they can also cause this. So what we got to do is directly stimulate the hair growth, the hair follicle. And morning and afternoon sun does that. Morning and afternoon sun does that. They've shown this in clinical trials. Then we got to increase growth factors like IGF, BDNF, nerve growth factor, and increase blood flow. But if your blood sugar's up and plaques building up in your arteries, you're going to have decreased blood flow. So you've really got to look after your blood sugar as well. So you can see right there clearly how we're going to solve this problem. Now, if you've got food sensitivities, which you can test for, like a lot of people are triggered on gluten. There's a whole bunch of things you can be triggered on. That causes a phenotype of TH1 or 2 and TH17, and that's going to start destroying the hair follicle. Now, TH3, that's the one we need to push in the up position because it is going to shut down that inflammatory response. And you can use supplements to do that. And one of the biggest things that I've learned working with functional doctors is that laughter, feeling good, releases TH3. But if your vitamin D's low, or your retinol's low, or you've got poor vitamin status, it's all for naught. So we've got to ensure that we've got optimal vitamin status too. Then, as I mentioned, the alopecia hair loss, gut health, and nutrients. If you're lacking nutrients, you're going to, early alopecia or male pattern baldness there. So let's have a look at this download. It's linked below, which is right here. So let's just go to this first part right here. So I've got a bit of information right here. And you can do all these advanced testing like immune health, IgG food sensitivities, gut health testing, advanced methylation panels, as you see. Then I talk about that in there. And then I just basically talk about how the medical system is letting us down. And like we've got clients in their 60s with optimal testosterone. So we've got case studies in there as well. And then we talk about the problems with low T, right? When you got low T, all of this is going to show up, decreased energy, vitality, well-being, and motivation. Like right there, you're at a massive disadvantage. Like for men, it is the vitality hormone. It makes you feel like the man you were born to be. And of course, decreased mood, feeling sad and blue, impaired cognition. So your earning potential comes down, increased sleepiness and fatigue, impaired cognition, poor concentration, memory. Do you see what's going on there? And they're not optimizing for testosterone at all. And again, we've got men in their 60s with optimal testosterone. So it doesn't matter what age you are or what genetics you've got, you can get this back. Then as we come down a bit further, we talk about thyroid hormone. And I also talk about the immune issues and how you can test for the immune antibodies there, gut health, and what's needed in thyroid there. Then I also talk about alopecia hair loss as well. So that, the downloads below, inflammation, what you want to check for inflammation, insulin resistance, of course, and how it causes accelerated skin aging, as I mentioned, and ferritin overload, iron overload can also cause that too. And then right down here, I start to talk about the recommended blood labs. So they're all here. Now, for women, it's a little bit different. You got to check your labs at the right time. So all of these markers here, they're the bare bones that we recommend that you get. And we've also got a video to support that. So you can actually watch that video. And then as far as pre-lab checks, we got you covered there too. So that download is below. Now, one final thing that I'll talk about here. I'll just find the slide. Bear with me a moment. I've just got to scroll back up the top here. And this one is about immune health. And this is a pretty big one. So when I went through and did my certificate in nutrition, I took extra courses from Dr. Daddis here. And he was talking about silent autoimmunity. So I'm just going to play this video. And this is shocking, right? This is how the medical system is failing us. Listen carefully.
Now, the healthcare system is only designed to look for stage 3. They don't do antibodies in the initial stages. Insurance companies don't pay for antibodies in the early stages. And even though the research has shown that antibodies can be predictive for autoimmune diseases, it's not part of routine healthcare. So there's a gap between what research finds and then what actually gets implemented in the healthcare system. So if you're walking into your insurance model, healthcare model, there's going to be no effort or diagnostic testing even approved designed to look for these early antibodies that will determine if you have autoimmunity. And because of that, many people suffer for years and years and years before they get diagnosed because they're not in stage 3 where they have full tissue destruction. So that's the concept of autoimmunity stages. Stage 1, silent, just the antibodies, no symptoms. Stage 2, they start to have symptoms for whatever tissue is being attacked by their immune system. And stage 3, they finally progress into a disease process. Remember I showed you those statistics in the first part of the course where they showed 50 million people may have autoimmune disease, or 4% of the world population may have it, or 12% of women has autoimmune disease. Those are all in reference to stage 3. If you actually look at the numbers of people that are in stage 1 or 2, the numbers would be much, much higher than those with autoimmune disease. So here's a person who's got early joint autoimmunity. There's actually deformity change. So this is stage 3. It's no longer, prior to this, they may have just had some cartilage protein antibodies, which would have been silent. And then years later, they started to have joint pain, but there was still no change in their structure. And this is at the point where they're actually getting to stage 3, where these are called nodules. These are called RA nodules. They're starting to get destruction and swelling and inflammation of their joint. This has progressed stages of rheumatoid arthritis.
So that's just one autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis there. So the issue becomes is that you could have these antibodies, and you can test for this. You got no symptoms at all, right? And that's terrible. You want to make sure you don't have these antibodies. And then all of a sudden you'll start to get symptoms like gut issues, brain fog, anxiety, depression, skin issues. All of these issues can start to arise. And then the medical system won't diagnose you until you've got tissue destruction. It's too late then. You can't really walk it back then. So that's a big problem. Now, this is the progression towards full-blown autoimmune disease. This is where we want you. No antibodies being created whatsoever. So this can be silent here. You've got the antibodies, but you've got no symptoms yet. So when you get to, say, 25, 35, or 45, you'll start to get anxiety, maybe depression, maybe skin issues, bloating, brain fog, memory issues. And what does the system say? That's normal. It's a normal part of aging. Do you honestly believe in your heart that that's normal? I'm 53 and I've never felt better. So these autoimmune diseases, there's a list. Have a look at all of that. So final video here from Dr. Daddis. Listen carefully.
Now, a lot of people have autoimmune reactions, but they don't have a full disease yet, meaning they have antibodies in their blood work, but they don't have full disease yet. It's not until their tissue is destroyed will they finally get diagnosed. So that's a major problem. So those are the key things I want you to understand about very important principle of autoimmunity, which are the stages of autoimmunity. Silent, stage 1, autoimmune reactivity, stage 2, and then finally autoimmune disease. Now, the next important principle to understand about autoimmunity is a question we ask as a clinician all the time, and that's where's the rest of it? So, for example,
did you catch that? Where's the rest of it? Generally, there's other autoimmune diseases progressing. So you could be autoimmune disease here, and this one's silent and progressing. So you can see how that's a problem. So you can do comprehensive testing on that. So like here's comprehensive testing on that. So like right here, the ovaries and testes, right? Infertility or sex hormone production. So you can test for all of this. Synapsin, so for your brain, and your cartilage here, so you can test all of these. Phospholipids for the skin here, skin issues, if you've got antibodies against your skin. So wouldn't you want to know? Or do you want to have your head buried in the sand? So that download is below, and I've got all the information in there. And if you want to book a call with me, there's a link to book a call there with me as well. So that's all I've got on this one here. And I think it's pretty serious. I think we need to really pay attention to the new information from the functional doctors that they're giving us now, because we can live a very long, healthy life and age like fine wine if we listen to the right people. And we've got to do all of these testings. We must not have our head buried in the sand, because not only letting ourselves down, we're letting our family down, we're letting our team down, our earning potential comes down, our life's potential comes down. So I think it is super important that we do extensive testing to find out where your body is starting to fail you, and we can fix it once we understand where the root causes are and strategically fix those issues before you've got full-blown autoimmune disease and tissue destruction. So if you've got any questions, drop a comment below. More than happy to do a deep dive on anything that you've seen here today, because we must do better and we can do better. And it all starts with blood labs.